Hello and welcome to Tap In Tuesdays, a part of Leia on the Line. This is my podcast. I am Leia Hartman, former college basketball player. I played at the mighty Northwestern University, and I am also a filmmaker. I make films. I'm also like a journalist. I do a lot of different things. So welcome to my podcast, and let's jump into today's topic. Today we are going to be talking about what we also talked about last week, but in a different way. So we're going to be talking about Project B, but I got some new information. So we're going to break that down. Alana Beard, we're going to break down who she is, why she matters in this conversation. She had a recent podcast with Sarah Spain, who is a women's sports journalist, where she talked about all things Project B, what they plan for the future, breaking down their business model, how they came to be. And then we're going to talk a little bit of entrepreneurship and what that could look like in the future. So stay tuned and let's get into it. To jump right into the Alana Beard conversation, I'm going to give some backstory. So Alana Beard is she's a co-owner of this Project B league that is growing. So Project B is a women's basketball league that is an international league, and it's set to start next November. They're planning on 7 cities globally. It'll be in Asia, Europe, the Americas. There will be 2-week tournaments held. So it'll be a 2-week tournament in a city, and then they'll do that 7 times. And that'll be the totality of Project B for that season. There's going to be a men's and a women's league. They're both going to play in the same city at the same time. So it's kind of going to function like the US Open in a way where if you want to go see Tiafoe, you can also go see Coco Gauff. So, it's accessible to women's fans, men's fans, and the big benefit of Project B is that it's paying their players a lot more. The actual number is not disclosed yet, but Alana Beard, who's a co-owner, is saying that it's going to supersede any payment that the WNBA or Unrivaled has been able to offer thus far. So we're assuming it's going to be in the millions, at least. There's been a lot of information out there. In my last video, I gave a number of 2 million, which is a projected number that some sources have put out there, but the actual number hasn't been disclosed. Those are just predictions. And so it's really interesting when we think about Project B and how it's just adding another option to what WNBA players and professional women's basketball players can participate in outside of playing in the WNBA season, playing in America, and playing overseas. It's essentially adding another option. And it's actually adding an option for overseas talent that has never made it to America. So, women go and play overseas, and they play with and against some of the best talent in the world, but a lot of that talent stays overseas. It never really expands and becomes covered by the media in the same way that American sports are in the WNBA, Athletes Unlimited, Unrivaled, plus more. It's just not the same. So it's interesting to think about how this is becoming a global conversation. It kind of made me think a little bit of soccer and how I think a comparison that Alana Beard made was like F1, race car driving, and how they host these different tournaments and in different cities, and then there's a champion. There's like a world champion. That's the same thing they're doing. But it's making me think of, in a global way, how they're planning to expand on the market for basketball outside of the United States, kind of like soccer. Like, soccer is the most viewed, I think, or the most liked sport in the world. Second is basketball. And so I think it's interesting because basketball is more liked in the United States than soccer, but soccer is more liked globally than basketball. And so there's been some numbers that have come out recently that have said that around 10 to 11% of all of the basketball fans in the world exist in America. So that is a big percentage, but when you think about it, 10 to 11%, well, where's the other 90%? It's in Asia, it's in Europe, it's in other countries and continents that basketball is not as accessible. And so they're essentially tapping into this global market and trying to profit off of it. And who is controlling this league? Well, there's two main people that have been at the forefront of it, two men, and one of them is I wrote this down so I don't mess this up. One of them is the co-founder of Skype. His name is Geoff Prentice. I might not have pronounced that right. And the other is CEO global sales of Meta, Grady Burnett. He's the former Facebook and Google exec. And then Alana Beard, who I mentioned in the beginning, she is the biggest public figure, kind of, and she's also a co-owner who is a former WNBA player. She was drafted in 2004 to the WNBA, MVP. She's played in 27 countries overseas, internationally, so she's played professional ball all over. So she has the connections, she has the rapport, and she has experience. She knows how things are done overseas. So that's also something that's interesting, is how the dynamic of who's in control of this league is different than when you look at a league like the WNBA. And it feels like also, in a way, with these other leagues that have been created, Unrivaled, and now Project B, they're essentially just taking things that the players have said themselves and copy-paste, putting it in the business model for their business. So something like Unrivaled, players are saying, we want equity in the league. We want a revenue share. Well, what did Unrivaled do? Copy-paste the exact same thing. So, it's something that's definitely interesting to note from a business perspective, like how they're approaching getting people to join the league and the values that are being represented of the league itself. So I think last week also I mentioned there's been a lot of controversy around Project B for a few reasons. One of them has been, is it going to compete with the WNBA? The WNBA has been growing for so long, and they've made such an effort. Why throw the towel in and go somewhere else and put effort in somewhere else? That's one big conversation that's happening, and people are saying, well, just invest in the WNBA. The WNBA, after all, has platformed something like Project B to even make it accessible, so why not just invest in the WNBA itself? Another controversial point is its Saudi backing with Selma. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. It's just an events partnership that it seems like with reporting that's come out that may be a little misreported based on headlines and the actual backing that Project B has from them. So yeah, those have been two major points of conflict, just based on comments and reactions to Project B online. But Sarah Spain, who is a journalist, she covers women's sports, she interviewed Alana Beard and asked her many very interesting questions about Project B, and I suggest you listen to it if you haven't. But essentially, she just talked about the ways that Project B is not rivaling the WNBA, but she claims that it is essentially just a way to, in the off season, for players to tap into the global interest in women's basketball and capitalize off of it. And I think first and foremost, if players are getting paid what they're saying they're going to get, presuming millions, then yeah, that's definitely going to grow, and I don't see why players wouldn't join that if that's how much money they're getting. Yeah, so another interesting point about Project B is that it's owned by two people that have experience in tech. Skype and Meta, Facebook, Google. These are execs, people that have a lot of experience in that world, and now they're bringing that to sports, to the WNBA, to women's basketball, and growing it on a global scale. So something that Project B has also been adamant about bringing to women's basketball is tech-like returns to players of the league. So what does that actually mean? How does that actually translate? I think that was my question when she said that in the interview with Sarah Spain, was they want tech-like returns for the league. what is that actually going to look like? Like, they have these two tech guys that are very successful that are like running the league, but how is it going to translate to players, getting paid and things like that? And they don't actually have a clear answer right now on specifics and partnerships that they have. They're not willing to publicly disclose that information. But what Alana Beard did say in the interview was that they want to build a platform, a viewership platform, or have something that they're accessing, which is going to be accessible to people in America, in Europe, in Asia, so that you can watch games. Anyone can watch these games on one platform. So you could have billions of viewers on one platform watching the same thing. And I guess that's an aspect of where like these tech-like returns could come into play. If the broadcast, I'm just assuming here that potentially the broadcast could in some way be benefiting the players if they are wanting the business to function like a tech business. So that'll kind of be interesting, I think, just personally, just like that's something that's never been done before, kind of like unrivaled, something that's never been done before. It looks completely different than the WNBA. And honestly, the more that I've kind of thought about this and some of the questions that I posed last week in last week's video about Project B and some of the online controversies, I've kind of shifted my thinking a bit to thinking that this actually has nothing to do with the WNBA at all. I actually don't think. I think it's, at least for now, I mean, at least right now, I don't think it seems like there's going to be anything that's directly affecting it. The progress of the WNBA, the players of the WNBA being able to play in both. And I hope it doesn't, because there needs to be a WNBA. I mean, first and foremost, like, I think with most of like the global fan base for basketball being in America, like, there has to be like a central American league that is playing and that is like succeeding like the most. And I don't know, I think it would be interesting just in general to imagine a world where like if the only way that professional women's basketball was played was overseas, like would Americans still care? Like would we tap into like a Project B game, championship game, the way that we would tap into a WNBA championship game? And my initial thought would be, because basketball is kind of like king in America, I feel like that wouldn't necessarily be the case, but hopefully we don't have to see the day that comes. Hopefully there is a WNBA always, but it is interesting to think about. And yeah, I guess my thoughts on that are just that I think that Project B, as it's being explained currently on November 25th, 2025, that it is something where it could flourish and really propel the global market, which could also in return help propel the WNBA. So those are just my thoughts on that. My updated thoughts on Alana Beard, Project B, and all the recent information that's come out regarding women's basketball, professional women's basketball. I will say, this is just a side note, I actually wasn't going to talk about this. College women's basketball, I've been watching. And from when I started playing in 2019, and even before then, throughout high school, as I was like following college teams, it's been crazy to see the transformation. Like just in terms of like the media and just what's accessible and how players are being, promoted and things like that. That game was just everywhere. And I didn't watch it live, but I rewatched some of the game and I was like, yeah, this is the real stuff right here. Like, this is what we want to see. This is the type of competition. This is the type of rapport that has been wanted in women's basketball. And it's great that it's finally being brought to the forefront of people's attention. So yeah, that's a note on college basketball. So yeah, I guess I kind of wanted to wrap up this Tap In Tuesday with a little businessy, since we were just talking about business and Project B and all things to do with that. Just thinking, well, first of all, I went to Northwestern right here, and my minor was in entrepreneurship, which was kind of random at the time because I wasn't thinking like, oh, I want to be like a business owner. I wasn't actually thinking that at all. But in the recent like year to like few months, I've been thinking more about that and more how I can use my personal brand and, you know, just things that I'm doing to help build something which can eventually become a media company or something more businessy, CEO-y. Like I saw a TikTok someone made a while back, and she was like joking in the video, but she also wasn't joking. She was saying that if you're a creator, a TikToker, a content creator, if you create content on anything, not just TikTok, like you're controlling like your brand. So like you are CEO, like of what you are like bringing in. Like you can do brand deals and all that. Like you are a CEO because you're controlling like your own income basically in that way. So I don't know. It was like she was like joking, like TikTok creator. No, like CEO. Like, she was definitely, like, being, like, playful with it, but I think, in, like, to its core, like, yes, like, that is very true, and even thinking about something like Project B with Alana Beard, like, would Project B, like, exist to the extent that it is without her? Like, it started as an idea between the two tech owners. They like had a dinner and had this idea and then decided, okay, like we're gonna do this. And then I'm sure they like outsourced people and then found Alana Beard. But I'm just thinking like she's the only one like in that team that has basketball knowledge. And so, you know, that's her brand. She has worked in venture capital, worked in basketball, played professional in the WNBA, you know, nonetheless, but also played overseas. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like she's bringing like her own kind of like brand to this based on her like experiences and her like identity in a way. And so, yeah, in terms of like business ownership, like nowadays and just thinking about like me potentially like starting something, it's kind of one of those thoughts where I have about like how your own like self is like your brand. And you know, she is like basketball and how that's like Project B is basketball and it's all just like so intertwined. I don't know. Maybe this has like existed forever and I'm just like tripping, but yeah, it's just interesting to think about from like a like ownership perspective and somewhat of like the extent to your success in that way. So yeah, those are kind of like all the thoughts that I had today. But yeah, this mug right here is my dog that used to be alive, that's not alive anymore, unfortunately. His name was Shadow, and I loved him. He was a beagle, and so that's why I have this. So, yeah. Oh! There's another dog that's not Shadow barking. But, yeah. Thanks for watching this week's Tap In Tuesday. Stay tuned for next week as there's hopefully this new series starting, which is Between the Lines, where I'm discussing basketball relevant topics with another journalist. Hopefully that's going to be aired next week, but I will keep you updated. And again, thanks for watching. See you next week.